I'm not a technical person. Like I can't code or anything like that. But I'm a knowledgeable person. I'm very curious. And so there's very little that I can't figure out. And Straiko's just made it so much easier to bring a lot of these concepts that I have bouncing around my head to life. I was trying to figure out ways to optimize content, ideation, mm, just general conceptualization, and things like that. So most of the other solutions, you could choose 3 models, and that was it max to compare against. And when I tested out Straico, I realized like, okay, I can actually test more than just 3. And so I discovered Straico because I was looking for a solution that allowed me to compare multiple large language models, test outputs. Um, and I came across a few examples, and it just so happened that around the time that I was looking for the solution, there were a few that came on the market. I was immediately like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Mainly because like the templating system that you guys have was something that didn't exist in any of the other solutions. Um, and so actually it wasn't a huge leap for me to say, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and stack this all the way up. And then even after that, you guys were doing some stuff through your own site. And I went ahead and upgraded like twice, I think, because I immediately saw the value. But once I noticed you guys had an API, I was like, yeah, this is the one to bet on. When you guys release the RAG implementation and the ability to actually leverage Straico to build agents, that one was something that was like, okay, these guys aren't playing around, right? Because it's one of those things where like it was even before agents started becoming like, oh yeah, agent for this, agent for that, and so it was like that gave me a lot of confidence in just like the way you guys are thinking about things, especially because it was like I think it was obvious that that was the way things were going, but not a lot of people were moving on it yet because a lot of people I think unfortunately wait until they have a larger signal in the industry from like a major player before they start moving on it. And you guys didn't really seem to wait around to see if somebody big would do it. You were just like, this is what's happening. So let's just go ahead and implement that. And there's a bunch of other things in it too. A perfect example, I actually built a pseudo application that helps kind of keep my finger on the pulse of our industry. So again, using active pieces in combination with Straico using the Perplexity API through Straico, search through the industry for news in the past week. I then actually use Straico to create the email template that I then dynamically pipe in data. I also use Straico to generate the code that parses that data to then pipe it into the HTML. And then Straico also generates 2 images per industry digest and sends that out. And I get that on a weekly basis every Saturday. And then my clients actually saw that and they wanted it for their industry as well on their use case. And so now I have it running for them as well. And so every week on Sunday, they get an industry digest that breaks down the current news in their industry and then also extracts that to give them insights on how is it applicable to their business and what are the potential business opportunities for those things and how to actually like little steps to implement it if they so choose. And that's been a huge game changer for us, like staying ahead of the curve, not just for myself, but also for them. And so a lot of this technically could be done at Straico, but it would take so much longer. My very first kind of aha moment, there's 2 of them that I can remember very vividly. The first was when I first discovered how to actually use templates properly. Um, that opened up a whole new world for me for 2 reasons. One, because it gave me a better way to test, but it also made me a much better prompt engineer because it made me think more, like allow me to use system thinking when it came to prompting. But before I started doing automations using Straico, I was doing everything directly inside of the interface. The prompt structure you guys have is actually what made, once I moved over to automations, it made that process a lot more frictionless as far as setting them up. Because a lot of the things that I had, the mental models I had made inside of the Straico dashboard, I was able to apply automation tools one to one, because the way I need to pipe in the data is very similar to the way that the variables work inside of Straico. And so there's a lot of things around that. Straico also helped me understand the kind of value behind each model, um, and also like the strengths and weaknesses of them. So again, like I mentioned, I'm not a developer by any means, and Straico was actually very helpful in me getting a deeper grasp on a lot of code concepts. I was able to actually look at different outputs from different things and pass those things. It's very meta, but passing those things back into Straico and saying, "Hey, why are these different, even though solving the same problem, and which is better and all that kind of thing." So that's the first part, is realizing, one, that it's a tool that not only allows me to be productive, but actually helps me learn a lot faster. The second, aside from all the API stuff, was, one is just like actually working with the API was probably the most frictionless experience with the API I ever had. One, because the documentation was just so clear, but you guys made the API so simple. And it's actually one of our principles with Sager, and it's taking complexity and simplifying it to like the bare necessity of what it needs. Where like you don't have, like, it just gets out of the way and it just works. And the API is like that. A lot of times when I'm trying to think about what I want to do with the API, I don't really have to look at the documentation because it's so easy to remember. And that was amazing for me. And it actually made me, for a brief moment, feel like I was a developer. I think the simplest advice is learn how to use it. Thank me later. Uh, um, I think that's the simplest advice. But I think really I think the beautiful thing about Straco is it's a platform that genuinely empowers people to learn how to leverage large language models without so much headache or back and forth. Straco genuinely empowers even the most non-technical person. Once they learn how to use the platform, there's really no limits to what they can do creatively.